The first sign was a wine glass, half full, lipstick stained, on the edge of my desk. It wasn't mine. It wasn't even our usual brand. I'd come home early from a canceled client dinner and found the living room still echoing with music that wasn't paused, just muted, like someone had fled in a hurry. Lena was in the shower. That detail matters. We live in a mid-century home outside of Boulder, tucked behind sycamores, private, well-insulated. You can't hear much from the street, but inside, the acoustics betray everything. The sound of water running, the wine glass, the door that hadn't fully latched. She claimed she was home alone that night, that the glass was hers, that she'd wanted to relax. I didn't argue. I walked past her towel-wrapped body, said I needed to finish some work, and shut the office door. Then I checked the security footage. I'd installed the cameras 3 years earlier after a break-in attempt. Most of them were outside, but one faced the driveway, and another, a cheap, pinhole lens, was tucked into the bookshelf, covering the living room. Lena never asked about it. I never reminded her. At 7:42 p.m., a black Range Rover pulled into the driveway. At 7:44, Lena opened the door in a silk robe. At 7:45, a man in a gray suit stepped inside and kissed her like they'd done it before. His hand stayed on her lower back too long to be accidental. He had a tan line on his ring finger. I zoomed in. It was faint, but there. I watched them drink the wine I had bought. At 8:03, they vanished down the hallway toward the guest room. He left at 9:27, buttoning his shirt, Lena standing in the doorway with that same wine glass, smiling. At 10:02, I pulled into the driveway. She was in the shower when I opened the footage. That timing wasn't a coincidence. She'd been with him. Then she cleaned herself. The Range Rover belonged to Chase Hartman, regional director of her company, Ridge Tech Analytics. Married. 2 daughters. Public LinkedIn page with over 500 connections and a string of company photos where Lena always stood next to him, hand resting on his shoulder like a silent claim. I didn't sleep that night. I started writing code instead, quiet, efficient surveillance programs. A folder system. Hidden backups. A log of every time his vehicle appeared, every instant she left without explanation, every movement synced across devices. This wouldn't be a confrontation. This would be a demonstration. I began cataloging patterns. Mondays and Thursdays, she stayed late. Not always, not enough to raise suspicion, but enough to register once you looked close. Her texts around those times grew shorter. Less punctuation. No emojis. The Lena I knew used to flood messages with little hearts, double exclamations. That part of her had gone quiet. She claimed the firm was gearing up for a merger. That chase had everyone on edge. That staying late was about deliverables. The language wasn't hers. It was his. I added a small GPS tracker to the underside of her car, magnetized, silent, pinged data to my drive every 30 minutes. I had her calendar, her badge history through Ridge Tech's employee portal, her Wi-Fi syncs, and her Google Maps location from an old account she hadn't disconnected. Nothing screamed affair in isolation. Together, the pattern was brutal. One Thursday in mid-February, she missed a late meeting and ended up at a boutique hotel downtown. I drove past on my way to the gym, pretending to take a wrong turn, and saw her car parked across the street. I looped around twice. It didn't move. At 11:14 p.m., she texted, "Long day. Crashing early. Love you." I didn't respond. Instead, I screenshotted the timestamp, saved it in the folder I'd labeled Hartman. I added a screen grab of her car parked in the background of a Yelp review photo for the hotel's rooftop bar. By March, the footage was undeniable. 2 nights after her birthday, she left the house in a red wrap dress, the one I bought for her last summer in Napa, claiming she was meeting Beth from HR for drinks. Beth was in Oregon that week for a compliance retreat. I knew because I checked. At 7:23 p.m., she entered the Easton Hotel. At 7:29 p.m., Chase Hartman entered behind her, wearing a different jacket than he had at work. They didn't leave until 10:46. Different exits. Coordinated. Sloppy. Back home, she placed her heels quietly in the hallway closet and tiptoed past our bedroom. I listened with my eyes closed, cataloging the silence. She showered. Again. I began planning the execution. Her company's Q2 party was coming up, a semi-formal mixer hosted at a leased venue Ridge Tech used every April. It wasn't fancy, but everyone was expected to attend. I still had the invitation from the last year. +1s encouraged. I RSVP'd. But I wasn't coming as her husband. I was coming as evidence. The plan was simple. Not messy. Not emotional. just visible. I reserved a small A/V setup through a friend who freelanced corporate events. Said I wanted to surprise my wife with a slideshow tribute. 10 years together, I told him. No red flags. I even mocked up a few fake anniversary photos, blurred with filters, soft jazz track included. He helped me cue it discreetly into the program rotation. Said no one would check as long as I used the official Ridgetech theme. I did. Meanwhile, I finished building the archive. I clipped each encounter down to tight, silent segments, Lena opening the door. The embrace. Chase adjusting his wedding ring afterward. Her placing her hand on his thigh in the restaurant. Him brushing something off her lip, not food. The hotel lobby. The elevator mirror. All time-stamped. All branded with Ridgetech's logo subtly in the corner, using an overlay I built into the footage. It looked like security camera view footage. Clean. Sterile. Undeniable. I kept my demeanor flat around Lena. She noticed the distance, asked once if I was stressed about work. I said yes. She didn't press. 2 nights before the event, I handed her a wrapped box, a navy cocktail dress I knew she'd love. Said I wanted her to feel like the star of the show. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "This means a lot, you coming." She didn't know what she'd helped me pick out was the perfect dress for her own reckoning. Friday came. The venue was a low-lit event space on Pearl Street, mostly white walls and Edison bulbs. Soft catering. A corporate playlist humming in the background. I wore a charcoal suit, no tie. She wore the dress. Chase arrived 40 minutes in. He didn't look at me once. They mingled for a while, not together, but near. Proximity like magnets trying to look innocent. Her hand brushed his once near the punch table. He laughed too loudly at a joke she didn't finish. I nodded to my A/V guy. He gave me a subtle thumbs up. At 8:17 p.m., the lights dimmed for a tribute to our team. It started normal. Smiling staff photos. Group hikes. Happy hours. Office dogs. Then, a slow fade to black. And a still frame. Lena, in our living room, pouring wine. Timestamped. The next clip, Chase walking through our door. Then silence. The room didn't breathe. The clips were brief, 5 seconds each. No sound. Just visual rhythm. Private doors closing. Hands on backs. Hotel elevator buttons. A necklace removed. Shoes kicked off. Another timestamp. Another glance. I stood in the back, arms folded, watching not the screen, but the crowd. A few heads turned. One hand covered a mouth. Chase's wife was there too. She dropped her wine glass mid-frame 3. Lena didn't move. She watched the screen like it was someone else. Her hand trembled once. Then she turned toward me. I didn't blink. The slideshow ended with a black screen and one line in white. Not everyone here is loyal to this company. Or their families. The lights came up. Silence. Then murmurs. I left first. Lena didn't follow. I drove home alone. No music. No calls. Just the hum of the engine and the high-altitude silence Boulder keeps at night. By the time I stepped through the front door, it was 9:06 p.m. Lena's keys weren't in the dish. Her heels weren't on the mat. Good. I poured a glass of water, sat in the kitchen, and stared at the wall until 10:12, when headlights finally swept across the living room window. The door opened slowly. No sound except the click of her heels, slower this time, like each step had weight. She didn't speak. Didn't scream. Just stood there, in the doorway, the cocktail dress rumpled, mascara trailing down her left cheek like she'd tried to fix it once and gave up. I can explain, she said. I didn't answer. Chase said, he told me you might have known something, but... Still silent. She stepped into the room. Her eyes darted toward my phone on the counter. The cameras. The bookshelf. Like she was retracing the past with new eyes, wondering how much of her life I'd seen without reacting. You embarrassed me, she said finally, voice low, trying for anger. That was cruel. No, I replied. Cruel is lying to someone while they build a life around you. She didn't argue. She stood there a long time, waiting for a door to open that didn't exist anymore. That night, I slept in the guest room. Not because I was hurt, because I wanted her to hear the silence from across the hall. Saturday morning, she was gone before I woke. A suitcase was missing. She left her phone charger and a silver bracelet on the bathroom sink. The kind of carelessness only panic produces. I didn't follow. I filed a temporary separation notice with my attorney at 9:03 a.m. and changed the locks by noon. By Sunday, word had spread. A former colleague texted, "Was that real? Holy sh*t. Chase Hartman's profile on the Ridge Tech website vanished that afternoon. The company issued a vague internal memo about leadership restructuring. HR didn't reach out. They wouldn't. Not when half their staff had watched their senior director zip his career into a hotel room with a married subordinate. By Monday, I had my own inbox full lawyers, ex-employees, even Lena's sister, who messaged, "I didn't know." "I'm sorry." Lena messaged once, too. A single line. "Why didn't you tell me you knew?" I didn't reply. Tuesday evening, I met with Mark Leland, my divorce attorney. Older guy, ex-military, eyes like sheet metal. He didn't blink much, but he understood strategy. I handed him a hard drive. "What's on this?" he asked. "Everything." He plugged it in, watched the first clip, then nodded slowly. "This'll do." We discussed asset protection, joint accounts, the condo Lena and I had co-signed 3 years ago, my pension from the consultancy, her Ridge Tech stock options. Mark was meticulous, unemotional. I appreciated that. "She'll want to negotiate," he said. "Her leverage is gone, but she'll still try." "She won't get much." "No," he agreed. "But she'll try." We filed formal separation paperwork Wednesday morning. No fault state. Irreconcilable differences. I left the infidelity box unchecked. No need to show the court what the entire company already knew. Ridge Tech, meanwhile, had gone into PR lockdown. An anonymous whistleblower email leaked the affair footage to a local tech blog. They didn't name names, but the screen grabs didn't need names. Chase's career was done. Lena was suspended pending internal review. My inbox pinged again. This time, a message from Chase's wife, Heather Hartman. Subject line, "Thank you." She didn't write much. Just one sentence. "You gave me the clarity I needed," and a clean exit. Attached was a photo of her divorce filing. Collateral damage. Necessary. Lena's text grew longer. Thursday, "Can we please talk?" Friday, "I'm sorry for everything. I wasn't thinking." Saturday, "It wasn't about love. I was confused. I made a mistake." Each one landed like a pebble in a dry well. I didn't respond. I changed numbers by Sunday. That weekend, I packed the house with calm precision. I boxed her clothes, every scarf, every blouse I had folded during laundry nights. I left them by the door. Not thrown, not trashed. Just arranged. Order replacing disorder. I booked a storage unit for the things I'd keep: books, documents, tools. The rest, I sold or donated. Nothing she could claim remained under this roof. I cleaned everything. Not out of anger. Out of conclusion. I moved into a short-term rental 2 blocks from Chautauqua Park. High ceilings, lots of light, quiet. No shared history. Lena's belongings were picked up the following Tuesday. She didn't come herself. She sent a courier. A college-age kid who signed the receipt like he was delivering dry cleaning. He didn't ask questions. I didn't offer answers. I left her the necklace I gave her for our 5th anniversary. Not out of sentiment. I wanted her to see it, to remember what it symbolized, then feel its weight without my presence attached. Meanwhile, the Ridge Tech scandal kept burning. An anonymous employee leaked internal chat logs. Chase's messages. Flirtatious. Manipulative. Strategic. He dangled promotions, hinted at out-of-state travel, just us, referred to Lena in one message as our secret weapon, in and out of the boardroom. It was grotesque. Another memo hit the press. The board had launched an ethics audit. Chase was officially terminated. His name was scrubbed from Ridge Tech's annual report. Lena's name was not, but she was removed from all client-facing roles. Demoted quietly to a support desk position, same pay, less dignity. That Friday, I received a handwritten letter. No return address. Just my name on the envelope. The handwriting was hers. Inside, 2 pages. No theatrics. No defense. Just fragments of regret stitched together with phrases like, "I lost myself. I thought you were too busy to notice," and "I never stopped loving you." It ended with, "You won." I don't know what to do with that. I folded it twice. Burned it in a glass dish on the patio. I didn't need her guilt. I needed closure. The only thing left was the condo. It took 3 emails, 1 mediation session, and a notarized form. I bought her out of the mortgage. She needed the cash. I made sure she signed the release before the wire hit. She asked if we could meet after. 1 coffee. 1 conversation. I declined. A month passed. The inbox quieted. The rumors faded from Ridge Tech's corridors as newer headlines took their place. But the memory didn't vanish, it lingered like smoke. Not because of what they did, but because of how calculated it all was. One afternoon, I got a call from Beth, Lena's supposed friend from HR, the name she used that night she lied about dinner. Hey, Beth said. I don't want to get in the middle, but I thought you should know. She's been telling people you hacked her. Of course. Deflection. Always the final stage for people like Lena. She said what, exactly? That you planted spyware. Recorded her without consent. That you. I cut her off. She signed the smart home agreement. Cameras are legal. Footage was internal. I know, Beth said quickly. I didn't believe her. She's spiraling. Thanks for the heads up. Lena's narrative was shifting, not to fix her image, but to poison mine. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted to control the ending. That's what this was always about. Power. So I made one last move. I printed the timeline. Every piece of metadata, every receipt, every Wi-Fi ping, every security timestamp. I bound it like a report. Black cover. No emotion. Just facts. Then I mailed it. Not to Lena. To Ridge Tech's compliance officer. Anonymously. The final chapter of their internal audit would carry my silent watermark. Hard proof of what the company overlooked, what their culture allowed. If Lena wanted to keep clawing for the moral high ground, she'd have to do it with her record under glass. I didn't need her punished further. I just needed the truth preserved. That weekend, I hiked above the Flatirons. Left my phone in the car. Watched clouds roll in over snow-crusted ridges. The air felt new, like the first breath after being underwater too long. Lena still existed, but she no longer occupied space in my mind. It wasn't the discovery that broke me. It was the precision of her deception. Every false smile, every feigned fatigue, every day she came home, kissed me softly, and told me she was wiped out from work, when really, she'd been split across hotel sheets and company lies. That dual life, that ease, that's what I couldn't shake. Even now, weeks out, I kept replaying the micro moments. Her hesitation when I asked about Beth. The way she flinched when I brought up the Easton. Her deflection. Always soft, always controlled. You're working too much, she'd whisper. You need to be present. Gaslight, layered beneath affection. That's when I realized something brutal. She didn't just lie. She rewrote my perception of our life in real time. Even the gifts, the shirts, the framed photo of us from Jackson Hole, had been tools. She bought me silence. She handed me gratitude like a leash. I started unpacking those boxes in my head. There was the dinner she skipped on our anniversary. Client fire, she said. She'd been at the Marriott, 12 miles away, ordering room service with Chase. I checked the timestamp on the Uber receipt. Or the bracelet she gave me, silver, minimalist, after that week-long strategy retreat in Denver. That same week, her Apple ID logged into the Wi-Fi of a resort 90 miles west. I built a spreadsheet. It wasn't to punish her. It was to see clearly. I mapped every discrepancy, each lie aligned with physical evidence. Not just to prove she cheated, but to reclaim the narrative of my life. To rip the fiction out by the root. I shared it with no one. It wasn't revenge. It was surgery. Meanwhile, her name faded from the Ridge Tech site entirely. No announcement. No tribute. Just erased. She moved in with a cousin temporarily. I only knew because her forwarding address came through during one of the final escrow steps. No note. No apology. Just a signature. And I realized something chilling. She wasn't sorry she hurt me. She was sorry she got caught. The final confirmation came from a burner phone. Not mine, his. Chase Hartman, ex-executive, disgraced family man, master of corporate sleaze, apparently forgot that factory resets don't wipe everything when you sync to cloud storage first. I didn't seek it out. It came to me. A former Ridge Tech IT contractor, let's call him Greg, reached out after hearing about the party incident. He'd been quietly let go during the reshuffle, budget cuts, post-scandal cleanup. But before his exit, he had full admin access to archived company devices. I have a download, he said. You might want it. Curiosity outweighed caution. We met at a strip mall parking lot at dusk. He handed me a USB stick. No names, no chit-chat. Back home, I scanned the contents. Folder labeled Jade. Inside, dozens of screenshots, chats, voice memos. Chase's private messaging thread with Lena. All the messages she thought vanished. And not just logistics. Not just meet me here or rooms booked. These were layered. Emotional. Twisted. Chase, you deserve more than him. He'll never love your ambition the way I do. Lena, I feel seen with you. Not managed. Not tolerated. Chase, When this merger clears, I'll make room for us. Promise. Lena, he's starting to notice things. I might have to pivot first. Pivot. She had been planning an exit, not from the affair, but from me. A soft replacement strategy. The overlap wasn't accidental. It was designed. I was the scaffolding for her next phase, discarded once the new structure stood. It wasn't a love affair. It was a takeover. She never cried over what she did. She mourned the lost upgrade. The last message was 2 weeks before the party. Lena, he's been quiet lately. I think he knows. Chase, then control the story. Before he controls it for you. They were playing chess with my life. And I had flipped the board in one night. I didn't reply to Greg. I didn't leak the messages. I didn't need to. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about not mistaking silence for surrender. With every new piece of information, the past sharpened into focus. It wasn't rage I felt that had evaporated weeks ago. It was clarity. I started auditing the little memories. The ones I used to gloss over. Like how she always ordered wine at client mixers, even though she said alcohol made her feel sluggish. Or how she suddenly became obsessed with work strategy podcasts, Chase's favorite genre, I'd later learn. She'd been adjusting to him in real time. And me? I'd been holding space for a version of her that no longer existed. There was a conversation we had 7 months before the reveal. She came home, sat on the edge of the bed, and said, "Do you ever feel like you're not seen anymore?" I thought it was a vulnerability. I pulled her in. I said, "Every day. I thought we were reconnecting." Now I know she wasn't asking me. She was asking about him. After that night, she started dressing differently. Sleeker. Colder. I noticed. Complimented her. She shrugged it off. Chase liked black dresses. I found that line in one of his messages, "You look dangerous in black." She wore it to our friend's engagement party. I'd told her she looked beautiful. She barely looked at me. I began mapping emotional crossovers like a surgeon tracing scar tissue. There was no single moment where she turned. It was incremental. 1,000 daily betrayals, each one smaller than the last, until she was fluent in dishonesty. That's why I needed the footage. The timeline. The USB. Not for revenge. For reconstruction. You can't rebuild until you understand what broke. And now I understood completely. The last piece of my plan wasn't legal. It wasn't corporate. It was personal. There was still one place where Lena hadn't been exposed, the space she fled to next, her family. They knew about the divorce. She told them I had checked out, that my job consumed me, that we'd grown apart. Classic script. Manage the fallout. Control the narrative. Maintain sympathy. So I let her lie. Then I mailed them a gift. It wasn't angry. No threats. No accusations. Just a small, matte black USB, labeled simply, for context. Inside, 5 clips. Quiet. Undeniable. Her opening the door for Chase. Their hands. The hotel lobby. The way she looked at him when she thought no one else was watching. No captions. No commentary. Truth doesn't need a narrator. The envelope was addressed to her sister, Emma, the closest person to Lena. They used to talk nightly, post memes, share Pinterest boards of lake houses they'd one day buy together. Emma opened it. 3 hours later, I received an email. Subject, I had no idea. No body text. No signature. Nothing else came from Lena's family. No defense. No apology. Just silence. Like a castle wall crumbling under its own weight. By the weekend, Lena's social media was locked. Comments wiped. Profile photos changed to neutral silhouettes. She was slowly disappearing from her own curated world. But not from mine. I kept one last file. Not to look at. Not for leverage. But to remember how far I let her in. And how deep I had to go to get her out. The confrontation didn't happen in a courtroom or over coffee. It happened in silence, in a space she never expected. Her own company inbox. Ridgetech's annual performance reviews were due the following Monday. Lena, still clinging to her desk job post-emotion, was tasked with assembling pre-reads for the department heads. I knew this because Beth told me, and because I still had quiet access to an old project dashboard account, one she'd once registered under my email, back when we were a team. So I uploaded something. A folder. Labeled Q2 Presentation Assets. Inside, a PDF. No title. No watermarks. Just a sequence of photos and screenshots. Her text history with Chase. Hotel footage stills. A bank statement showing a payment she made for one of their getaways, labeled Wellness Retreat. The metadata trail that tied it all together. The final slide. A clipped quote from her HR handbook. Discretion is critical to trust. Integrity cannot be retroactively applied. She opened it. I know because Beth pinged me an hour later. She saw it. Froze for 10 minutes. Left the floor. Didn't come back. By 5 p.m., Lena had tendered her resignation. Effective immediately. No exit interview. No goodbye drinks. She simply vanished. Beth sent me one last message. That was surgical. It wasn't about punishment. It was about precision. She wanted to rewrite the narrative. I handed her the unredacted version. The company would forget her in 6 months. Her family already had. Now, finally, she'd have to live in the quiet space she carved for herself, without title, without audience, without anyone left to convince. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done. There was no victory lap. No final blow delivered with dramatic flair. Just a message received. A silence confirmed. Lena was gone. The apartment she moved into after leaving was vacated within the month. A neighbor forwarded the listing to a friend of mine. Her name wasn't on the lease anymore. She'd disappeared from Ridge Tech's alumni groups. Even her personal blog, the one she'd started about building balance as a modern woman in tech, was deleted. She didn't pivot. She collapsed. I didn't revel in it. I simply observed. By then, I was weeks into a consulting contract in Denver, new hours, better boundaries, fewer ghosts. The woman at reception never asked if I was married. I never offered. In meetings, I kept it quiet, focused, calculated. I'd become sharper, not colder, like steel pulled from fire. One day, as I reviewed a budget spreadsheet, I noticed something odd, a line item from a Ridge Tech adjacent vendor. A subcontractor Chase had once used during the merger talks. I flagged it. Quietly, precisely, I routed it through compliance anonymously. 2 days later, the item was scrubbed. A few internal heads rolled. I didn't follow the fallout. I didn't need to. The echoes of what they'd done were still out there. But they weren't mine to carry anymore. I'd returned to the life I once built, but cleaner, tighter, fortress-like. No weak doors. No unknown variables. Only movement forward. It ended where it started, quietly and on my terms. The divorce was finalized without contest. Lena didn't fight the asset split. She didn't even show up for the final signing. Her lawyer faxed the forms. No handwritten notes. No smiley faces in the margins. Just signatures. I kept the condo, the car, the pension. She kept the silence she created. The last mutual contact we had was the mediator, a bored woman with a tight bun and a voice like dry paper. This is rare, she'd said, flipping through our file. No pushback, no delay. Most people can't let go this fast. That was the thing. I'd let go a long time ago. The moment she stepped into that hotel with Chase, she became a story I used to tell myself. A future I had already outlived. On the day the decree arrived, I didn't celebrate. I took a walk. Same trail we'd hiked that fall when the leaves turned like fire, only this time, alone. No photos. No hand to hold. Just boots on dirt, wind in the trees, and space where something used to be. It didn't feel empty. It felt possible. By evening, I boxed up the last physical traces, a photo album from college, a set of coffee mugs we got in Portland, a playlist on an old iPod labeled Road Trip West. I didn't delete them. I archived them. Proof that something existed. Then ended. 6 months later, I saw her again. Not in person. Online. Someone tagged her in a group photo from a wellness seminar in Arizona. She looked thinner, hair shorter, smile practiced. No ring. No title. Just Lena T. In the caption, next to a quote, "Rebuilding is harder than starting fresh, but more honest." I didn't feel anything. Not hate. Not sadness. Not victory. Just recognition, like seeing a landmark from a life I used to live. There's a kind of peace that doesn't announce itself. No dramatic sunsets. No tearful monologues. Just a quiet dinner, a clean apartment, your name on the lease, and no lies inside your walls. That's where I live now. Sometimes, people ask if I'll date again. Maybe. When I'm ready. But I don't chase futures anymore. I build them. One silent, deliberate choice at a time. And if there's a lesson buried somewhere in all this, it's simple. You can love someone deeply, completely, and still walk away. Not because you stopped loving, but because they did. And they buried the truth under your feet, hoping you'd never look down. But I looked. I looked hard. And then I stepped out. Alone. Free. And never looked back.